In the village of Waverley, nestled between rolling hills and sprawling fields, there was a man whose name was spoken with a mix of respect and fear. Mr. Stanley was a nobleman, a wealthy businessman with a reputation for generosity, but also for his deep pockets and unyielding ambition. He was the owner of Stanley Casket Works, a company that crafted the finest coffins in the region. His company's services extended beyond that. He also operated Waverley Ambulance Services, a fleet of ambulances that served the community during emergencies, transporting the sick and the injured to hospitals in the city. To the untrained eye, Mr. Stanley's life seemed perfect. His business was successful, and his family was well respected. However, behind his polished facade and the smiles he greeted his clients with, a deep dissatisfaction gnawed at him. Despite his wealth, the number of clients he had was often too unpredictable for his liking. There were good months, and then there were dry spells where sales of caskets and ambulance calls would be down. Mr. Stanley wanted more. He didn't just want to be wealthy, he wanted to be untouchably rich, and he wanted to control his fortune, without the whims of fate or chance. It was during one of these particularly lean months that he decided to seek help. He'd heard rumors of a spiritual consultant, a native doctor known for offering solutions to the rich and powerful who needed an extra push to tip the scales of success in their favor. Desperation pushed Mr. Stanley to travel deep into the jungle to find the doctor, who was said to live on the outskirts of the village, far from the prying eyes of modern civilization. The native doctor, named Namdi, was a figure of awe and dread in Waverley. His powers were whispered about in hushed tones, with some saying he could control the spirits of the dead, others claiming he could change the course of a person's life with just a simple chant or ritual. When Mr. Stanley arrived at his humble hut, Namdi greeted him without question. There was no need for introductions. Namdi had already seen him coming, in his dreams, perhaps. "What do you seek, nobleman?" the doctor asked, his voice low and steady. "I seek wealth, power, and control over my business," Mr. Stanley replied, his voice betraying a hint of desperation. "I want my company to flourish, not just by chance, but by my own will." Namdi's eyes gleamed as he stared into Stanley's soul, assessing his true desire. "What you ask is not simple, but it is possible. I will prepare a charm for you, but you must promise me one thing." "Anything," Mr. Stanley said, eager to do whatever was necessary. "You must perform a ritual at the start of every month. You must eat your own feces," Namdi said, his expression unreadable. "This will ensure the magic works and bring forth the spirits of death." Mr. Stanley recoiled in disgust. What? What do you mean, the spirits of death?" "The ritual will summon death to your community," Namdi explained. "Every time you perform it, 3 people will die. And when they die, your ambulance will be needed. Your caskets will be bought. Your business will thrive. You will have the wealth and power you seek." It was a horrifying price to pay, but Mr. Stanley was desperate. He agreed to the terms, believing the power of wealth and success outweighed the cost. The first day of the following month, Mr. Stanley, shaking but resolute, carried out the ritual. In the dim light of his study, he closed his eyes and swallowed the bitter remnants of his own feces. As he did, a strange warmth filled his chest, and he felt a sudden rush of power flood his veins. He didn't know if it was the magic working or his own fear, but he believed it was the beginning of something great. True to Namdi's word, by the end of the month, 3 people in the community died. The first was an old man, a former farmer, who passed away in his sleep. The second was a young woman who had been in a car accident, and the third, a child, succumbed to a fever. The ambulance was called to each of their homes, and Mr. Stanley's casket sales soared. It was a dark and twisted cycle, but Mr. Stanley didn't care. The power and wealth were undeniable. Every month, the ritual continued. As long as Mr. Stanley ate the feces on the first day of each month, 3 more people died, and his business boomed. He had enough money to build new homes, expand his fleet of ambulances, and even buy influence in the government. But with each passing month, the weight of his actions began to gnaw at him. The community began to whisper. People noticed that after every ritual, there was a surge in death. The townsfolk were uneasy, but they couldn't prove anything. As his wealth grew, so did his arrogance. Mr. Stanley grew reckless in his desire for even more. He began to neglect the warnings, dismissing the growing unease in the community. The once noble businessman was now a tyrant, his only concern the next ritual, the next death, the next profit. But nothing can stay hidden forever. It was during one of the busiest months, when the deaths had reached an unbearable number, that Mr. Stanley's evil was finally exposed. His most trusted ambulance driver, Isaac, who had worked for Stanley for years, grew suspicious. Isaac had noticed the strange pattern of deaths that seemed to follow the same cycle, always after Stanley performed his ritual. One night, Isaac followed Mr. Stanley after work. He kept his distance, trailing the businessman into the woods where he had gone for the ritual. Isaac had heard the stories, but he never imagined it was true. When he saw Stanley perform the grotesque act, he felt a chill run through him. He knew he had to expose the man who had caused so much pain. Isaac went to the village elders and revealed everything he had seen. The elders, with their deep knowledge of ancient traditions, conducted their own investigation. Soon, the truth was undeniable. Stanley had been using dark magic to summon death, sacrificing the lives of innocent people for his own gain. The villagers, enraged and heartbroken, confronted Stanley in his home. The once respected nobleman, now a shadow of his former self, pleaded for mercy. But the evidence was clear, and the community demanded justice. His wealth, his power, his entire empire crumbled in an instant. Stanley was arrested, and the charm that had once promised him eternal success was destroyed. He was taken to the outskirts of the village, where he was bound and left in the wilderness to face the consequences of his actions. On the 4th market days, Mr. Stanley was beheaded according to the village costume. But the story of Mr. Stanley didn't end there. It is said that his spirit still roams the village, seeking to reclaim the power he lost. And to this day, some villagers claim that on the first day of each month, they can hear the eerie sound of an ambulance siren in the distance, as though the spirits of the dead are calling to him, waiting to drag him back into the darkness. Thus, the story of Mr. Stanley serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that no amount of wealth or power is worth the cost of human life, and that evil, no matter how well hidden, always finds a way to expose itself in the end. For more interesting stories, like, comment, share and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.